very special evening. My name is Natalie Cash. I'm the executive producer for the Wildlife Conservation Society, head of its photo and video teams. Over the past century, the Wildlife Conservation Society and the Explorers Club have shared a long and storied history and many similarities. WCS was founded as the New York Zoological Society in 1895 and the Explorers Club in 1904. Both organizations operate in 50 countries around the globe, with 4,000 Explorers Club members engaged in science, exploration, and resource conservation for the benefit of humanity, while WCS has 5,000 staff working globally to save wildlife and wild places, more field staff than any other conservation organization in the world. Yeah, very proud of that. I'm also a fellow here at the Explorers Club and serve as co-chair of its Public Lectures Committee. The public lectures are a time-honored tradition here at the club going back 100 years to the 1920s. It stems from the informal, small-scale discussions held by legendary explorers and club members at the turn of the century. The lectures have since become a staple here at headquarters and a platform from which all manner of speakers from Neil Armstrong to Jane Goodall have shared their discoveries with their peers and the general public. Now, by a show of hands, I just want to see how many of you are here for your first time. Okay. And how many of you have been here before? Exactly. So whether it's your first time or your 500th, welcome. This building has such tremendous energy in it throughout, from the stories that have been told from this very podium, to the photographs and the maps shown, flag expeditions that have returned, and to the amazing films that have been screened here, which brings me to tonight's amazing film and filmmaker. I first met Tyra Malani when she was a 2019 Jackson Wild Media Lab fellow. And I knew immediately that this was somebody special. It wasn't just that she was making these natural history films of power and beauty, but that she was making films to have tremendous on-the-ground impact for the species and the places that she was showing. Films that show not only the precious intangibles of nature, but that help to preserve them for future generations. So in our community of science exploration and science communication, she represents the very best of us. So it is with great pleasure that I welcome back to the Explorers Club filmmaker, ground shaker, and game changer, and EC50 class of 2023 member, Tyra Malani.
But yeah, it's as Natalie said, I was an EC 2023 fellow, part of the cohort last year, and so it feels very surreal to be standing here today on the same podium where I stood to first introduce my work. Natalie was the one who sort of sponsored me and I guess nominated me to be an EC fellow. I met her back in 2019, as she said, and she was the first mentor actually that I had at Jackson Wild, which has in a way been sort of an incubation space for this film. Over the years I've made incredible mentors and collaborators and people who've all contributed towards what this film finally is today. I want to thank the Explorers Club today for giving us this incredible platform to show our film. This is our third screening here in New York. We just premiered at Doc NYC earlier last week to full house. And yeah, it's been really incredible to see after 7 years of working on this film, such a positive response from people.
Just also want to just thank our production partners, which is HHMI Tangle Bank Studios, Tiger Baby Films, our EPs James Reed, Isabel Couture, Jared Lipworth, and Sean Carroll. Our impact partners, the Guyana Foundation, and our impact producer Jill is also here. She'll join us for a Q&A after. Our entire Imaho family, Imaho Films family, Mohit is here, and so just thank everyone and the entire crew who made this possible.
Yeah, it's a village to make a film. So, I also wanted to share a little bit about the story. Of course, you guys are going to watch it, but Turtle Walker is a story about a man who had a deep wonder for the marine world. a wonder that essentially led him to walk every inch of India's coastline to discover and protect this species. A legacy that he's left behind, which we're going to talk about right after this video. So I hope you enjoy watching the film, and we'll be back for a Q&A.
Tyra, and then you've got Krish, who is the director of photography and associate director. But welcome to new faces: Joe Ferguson, the impact producer, and Mohit Arora, who was the assistant editor, as well as additional photography and director's assistant. So please welcome. Amazing, amazing film. We're going to be sharing the microphone and also bear with us. I'm actually going to start with a quote, if I can find it. I had printed this out because when you were talking, you have to realize I met her as a Media Lab fellow, and this is her debut film. It won the debut feature length film. Not only did it have its world premiere this week at Doc NYC, this is the Grand Teton winner of Jackson Wild, where she started as a Media Lab fellow, which is the highest one. So, when you were talking about a 7-year effort and the team and the village it takes to make a film like this, I had this quote. This is from Scottish mountaineer and explorer William Hutchison, or W.H. Murray. He's writing in a 1951 book, The Scottish Himalayan Expedition. And what he writes is, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. And that is that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. I have learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do, or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. So, to committing to this beautiful film, can you tell us about that journey and how, you've got this amazing village that came with you?
Yeah, sure. So Total Walker, like I said earlier, our journey began 7 years ago. So yeah, like I said earlier, this journey began 7 years ago. I was living in the Andaman Nicobar Islands, which is featured in the film. I just finished college, was very lost, didn't know what I wanted to do. Spent like 5 years building towards a career in psychology, but just came back to India and decided that was not for me. And so I was learning how to dive, like living there, learning how to dive. And while I was learning how to dive, I realized that the local kids over there were so afraid of the ocean. And this is something that we see across India, is like our relationship with the ocean is one of fear. It's more extractive, not really one of wonder, and it's not a very positive relationship. And so this kind of struck me, and I came across this article written by Rom Whittaker, which was Satish's mentor, and it had these incredible old jungle sayings in which there were these stories where this man marooned himself on islands, got chased by elephants, had all these near-death experiences living alone with sea turtles. And I just was so inspired because I couldn't believe what it took for a person to do something like this. Like, why would you put yourself on an island for 9 months alone? Like, I don't think anyone in this room, including me, would do that. And so that really kind of drew me to the story, and I decided that I wanted to find him, but he ended up being the most difficult person to track down because he, in true sea turtle style, he really took it on and was as elusive as the sea turtles themselves, but lived a very, very quiet, like sort of hermit lifestyle. And so I had to really dig deep and find, one person who led to another, and finally I got the number of his wife. and she invited me to come and visit them, and it turned out that they lived just an hour away from my house. and so I went there with this, bold, big idea to make a film about him, and he very quickly just gave me a blank no. And he was like, many people have come wanting to tell my stories, National Geographic, Discovery, but I'm not interested. And so I went back home feeling quite dejected. But I was so fascinated that I kept going back. And I think after a few times, like I even took my mom there to try it out. After a few times, they were like, okay, fine, like this girl is not gonna leave us. And so slowly we started like putting together the story, and it started off being just like one pitching forum, where we were gonna pitch this film, that led to another and to another. And then in 2019, I got invited to attend Jackson Wild, and then the rest, I guess, is just history. I met Natalie there, who became an incredible mentor to us on the Impact campaign and the film, and as well as many other mentors, EPs, that's how. I mean, I can keep going, honestly. It was a long, long journey, but yeah.
One of the things I noticed is that also you could, sorry, I think this one's probably,
It's working. Oh, yeah. Is that this film, it's gorgeous. I know I've told you, like, not a frame out of place. It is so beautifully lensed, like, Krish, like, it is gorgeous. It is also, its talent is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about developing the look and feel, especially because you did this over time, and the decisions to shoot the night scenes in black and white? Like, can you tell us about just the visual way of conveying this going back and forth in time?
Sure. So, I mean, it was a very organic process. I'd say, like, it started off, like Tara mentioned, we initially thought it was a short film, and we started out just like, going over to Satish Uncle Bernardi's house, and we would just like spend afternoons there, just hang out. And initially we were also like finding the film, so I'd say we were, every day we take it as a new sort of exercise, new adventure, new challenge. And slowly then, as we started building that library, I think the film started to present itself to us, and then it started to show us new direction. So then we realized, okay, we are shooting with him at his home and his life, but then obviously we do need to showcase the animals in a way, because I mean, there's a reason he fell in love with these animals, so we had to also find a way to do that. But it's very tricky to shoot with sea turtles because A, they only come up to nest at night, and B, is they're very, very, very sensitive to light. So then working with the research team, they told us, we would need to use like special infrared lights and infrared cameras that can essentially see in the dark, so that they don't get disturbed while they come up to nest. Because the last thing they wanted was like a huge film crew coming and like disturbing a whole nesting season. So then we had to be very careful, and also it was very independent at the time, so we had like very like a Frankenstein kit of equipment from like all over the place, trying to like put it together. But yeah, we just knew that we had to go there, we had to spend time, and the other thing we learned a lot is patience, right? So you got to just spend as much time as you can, because they're not like actors you can give a call time and say, hey, we need to hear that. So yeah, so patience, and then yeah, the infrared material, we decided to turn it black and white because it just felt more striking visually versus the native colors of the infrared, and also it kind of gave like a slightly different perspective to the wildlife sequences versus the live action sequences. And apart from that, honestly, it was a huge group effort. I mean, all the aerial drone photography is all actually Tyra shot all the drone stuff herself. Some of the underwater stuff we got a very close friend of ours to join in, and I think patience and just spending time. And honestly, it doesn't hurt to have locations like these, which I think do half the work for you. So I mean, it was like a mix of all of that. Yeah, and sound. I mean, you could talk about the sound, developing the sound and music.
When you do this, the patience that it requires for this. I remember this one day where we camped out. We would camp out at the spot where the hatchlings would be emerging, and the hatchery, and we just wait, and they'd be like, okay, maybe there'll be a nest that hatches. So we just sleep there, waking up in the middle of the night, checking periodically, and then there started to be some movement in one of the nests. So all of us got super excited, got there, set up our kit, got ready, and then there was just like nothing for like 5 hours. And I remember we were just like rolling, and it got to a point where like we were like we started singing to like, do you remember this day? Just to keep ourselves awake. And but like that's the thing, is like you just see this turtle come out and stretch, but like the actual way that it happens is it could take like 3 to 4 hours for them. They like slowly emerge, and you know, it's like it's really beautiful, but it's also very painstaking. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with the family.
Oh my God, that kind of takes me to what I wanted to throw to Mohi, because it is a very contemplative, like the film reveals itself, and you know when he tells us, you know, I felt a connection. When we see you as the audience, you feel that as well. And so I wanted to ask you, from doing additional photography as well as being in the edit suite, making being a part of those decisions, like what was that like for you to bring that and this story just unfolds, and then another you did mention sound. I mean, like, should Christian not gotten anything? Like, you could like listen to this as a radio piece. The ASMR of every grunt and egg drop. It is just a luscious audio experience as well. But yes, tell us about that.
So all the hours they spent shooting when the turtles didn't come out, I had to see that footage. And there were days and days of just a lot of random stuff that they were shooting. And yeah, that didn't make it to the film. But I guess my job was to like make sure that all the footage that they had, like how do we take out the story out of that, and what all is not required for the film. And then just on location sound for us, like just that part of the recreations as a form of storytelling. You know, that sound just enhances everything, even the leatherbacks, they're so sound rich, you know, the tapping, the dance that they do, and the grunts, they're beautiful, so you just couldn't avoid taking the best sounds that you could. And yeah, whenever Krish needed help, I was there, behind the camera.
Yeah, you wore many hats.
Mohit wore many hats on this film.
And I love how you can see Satish, he was elusive and didn't know that all this work had been done to carry on. I mean, I know we talked a lot about mentorship, but we each stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us, and if we're lucky, we're blessed to hand down that which is passed on to us. And so I wanted to bring in Jill to talk about the fact that this isn't just a beautiful film and testament that there's real conservation and impact attached to this film. So you talk to us about the impact campaign.
Yeah, so after 2019, when Tyra first went to Jackson Round and met you, the idea of impact production became part of the film. So I've been part of the film since 2020, which is quite a long time. So we divided our impact campaign into phase 1 and phase 2, pre-release and post-release. And one of the biggest programs, we have many, many programs, you can go to our website to see all of them, but I'll just talk briefly about kind of the biggest one, which has been, we set up a marine mammal stranding network in multiple states across the coastline. So that moment when you see Satish wrestling with, should I intervene or not? We've taken that on and we've intervened in a really big way, trying to make sure that we can help as many marine life species as possible. So we work in Goa, Karnataka, Gujarat. We're also fundraising currently to do a telemedicine helpline, which will help bring this expertise to the rest of Pan-India for the Forest Department. And in Goa in particular, where we live, that's like the most successful marine mammal stranding network, which is really amazing because we've actually trained all 500 of the lifeguards to be the first responders, which is incredible. So this year alone, there was over 200 strandings. The main stranding season happens during the monsoon, but it happens throughout the year. So even like today, there was a dolphin stranding. Unfortunately, it was not a living stranding, but we get a lot of data and information that we can leverage for policy development. We've also done a whole assessment of the marine protected areas in the country. A lot of people internationally don't know how many MPAs there were in India. There's about 134, but there's a huge amount of scope for more and better management of those MPAs. So that's something we're going to be working on moving forward. There's a lot more things, but yeah, I would say if you guys have questions, you can find me and ask me more about some of them.
Yeah, and I was excited to put you in touch for phase 1 with WCES India, and they are creating a new marine protected area. So this film is really got like, I've hogged them for each of the first questions, so now I'm going to toss it out to you guys. And Charlotte has a microphone there in the back. Joe Ishai, and we have a hand. Wendy, here we go.
I'm completely blown away and impressed guest. I'm a member of the club. I've seen everything here from Discovery Channel, Nat Geo, indie films. This is an unbelievable film, and the fact that you didn't go to NYU Film School, you were living in the Andaman Islands, and something moved you to make this film. I mean, I think the whole audience will share this with me. You completely enlightened, educated, and advocated with a beautiful film like this. So, being a very practical person and wanting to really spread the word, 7 years it took to make this, and Natalie, thank you. You found her, you found each other. Kindred spirits in this world find each other. What's the plan for distribution to get this out there?
So this is just the beginning of our festival journey. We will have a lot more festivals through the next year. So if you guys are based in other places or you have friends in other places, keep an eye out because we'll be sharing them on our Instagram. But aside from that, we have also teamed up with a really good sales agent based here in New York, Submarine. They're handling sales for the film, so we're just beginning to take it to market.
So just a part two of that question. We had a member of the club get an amazing documentary, Mountain Queen. Okay, a lot of you have seen it.
Yes.
I talked to her at the bar one night. She said to me, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm in entertainment. What do you do?" She said, "Oh, I climb mountains." And then I turn on Netflix. and she's been to Everest 10 times.
I know.
There is so much opportunity right now, and we really need this stuff out there. Has anyone connected you with Netflix, and is there a plan for that? Because I bring them up because the brilliance of the distribution everywhere with Netflix is a good way to get the word out.
Yeah, no, definitely. We are in the process. We've just begun pitching. But if you know someone high up in
Absolutely. Moving completely. We all said the same thing. It was a very emotional film, incredibly shot. I mean, every aspect, every component of this film. And if I weren't here at the Explorers Club on a Friday night, I wouldn't have known that it existed. You know, we need to get the word out. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Here in the front,
I just want to congratulate the beauty, the Zen-like qualities that it took me out of my own element. I felt I was out there somewhere. It was so beautiful, so beautifully done. The cinematography, the beaches, the water, I felt like I was being baptized again. And I'm sure it felt the same way. So congrats to the cinematographer and to your vision that you were able to do this, and I thank you, because this was a gift that you gave us.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Sarah, I was going to have you talk a little bit about your psychology background, because like this film does have that ability to reach us on so. And you think about biophilia, we name our cars, our sports teams, our cereals. If you give a kid a toy to put on his fence antenna, but you tap into something in a time of increasing climate crisis, environment.
Yeah, sure, really quick. So my focus in college was in fostering empathy in youth, and that was something that was fascinating to me. Is like, how do you get people, how do you inspire people to sort of like engage positively with our planet? So that's what it sort of evolved into in my filmmaking journey. I made 2 short films before this that also looked at human and wildlife relationships, and this was the 3rd. And I felt it was really important to, rather than focus on like conservation-heavy topics in films, which can be quite depressing and debilitating, I felt that it was important to have a story that of course, there's a central conflict to it, but the messaging in it is one of hope and a feeling that things can be better, you know, and there is hope, and nature is resilient if we give it time and we protect it and create the conditions for it to thrive. So me being a young person that like who's growing up in this world and thinking about the future of our planet, like I wanted to see these positive, inspiring stories out. And I think that can really help to fuel action when it comes to an impact. You know, like if it's something where people feel like they can do something about it, they are gonna act, you know? And so I think that was just maybe a bit of positive psychology, and yeah, I totally it came from, the idea for the messaging.
One of the things, this is working, one of the things I was noticing as it was going through was how the psychology of the man was developed and his spirit was captured and his philosophy and his failures and his growth and that stream through the film was so subtle but so present for me. I mean, I was just kept thinking about it. And I loved that his wife didn't go, oh honey, you're old, and she said go, you know. And that was just remarkable. It was remarkable.
Thank you so much. I'm back from India from 2022, and this so beautifully shot, visually stunning. So I'm gonna keep these memories for the rest of my life. So that was very powerful. And I'm working with very remote communities in the Northeast, tribal communities, and looking at their stories. So you've done a lot of inspiration for me today, but I'm going to ask about the protagonist's story. What was so beautiful was that he is somebody that is custodian, and this is the Explorers Club, so he's just doing it. And you captured and made meaning for us his life. So I just want to thank you.
As the character made it so much easier for me, and to go off what was Tyra was talking about, even with the film and how she's utilized the psychology and how, you know, when we build relationships with their environment through these different things, an environmental ethic is built naturally within, which helps people want to protect it and fight to protect it. So phase 2, now that the film is ready, is actually going to be an entire education outreach curriculum. We're building a curriculum with Afiki, which is the teacher component of Teach for India. So it works with all the teachers training, and we're building a curriculum with them. So we're going to be leveraging this film and a series of shorter impact films to use art to educate and hopefully inspire the next generation of turtle walkers and marine conservationists pan-India.
Oh, okay.
Just 2 fast questions. Did Salish see the film? And he said at one point that he would never be able to go back again. Did he ever go back again?
So he did see the film. He saw an almost picture log cut, and he just asked us to remove one shot, which was like a random shot of a diary. Obviously, he didn't want that diary featured in the film, so we definitely removed that. But in true Satish style, he loved it, but he's not super expressive. So he's just like, okay, great, I like it, you know. And that was what we got from him. His wife, on the other hand, his daughters, they were all crying, and they still cry every time they watch the film. But yeah, he did get a chance to see it. Unfortunately, he didn't make it back to the islands after that. That was his last trip. So for him, it was really important to hear this news about this project before he passed. It really kind of helped him feel a sense of resolution and that things were going to be okay in the islands. So I'm really glad that happened. And I think in part it happened because of the film, because the reason he met this young man was when we went back to the islands. So yeah, it's nice that we were able to play a role in his story.
Yeah, I have a question. I was wondering, in the beginning you mentioned that young people had a fear of the water, of the sea, and do you think that's changing, or is it still there?
I mean, I think is changing, but it's definitely still there, because like in India, I feel like we're taught at a young age like to be afraid of the water, like the big ocean, like, and a lot of young people don't know how to swim. So in fact, in this place where I lived, there was this incredible coral reef that was like mostly alive right at the doorstep. Like you could literally swim out there or snorkel out there and dive over this incredible reef, and these kids had grown up there and never seen it, you know? So I think it is changing because there are programs to develop that. There are a lot of like young researchers and conservationists working over there to kind of foster that. But it's slow and it's obviously going to take time. We're hoping that this marine studies curriculum in the schools in India is going to help to introduce people to the marine world. So yeah, that would be good.
So I'm not sure you guys will be able to answer this, but the younger researchers said that the eggs that they were finding are much smaller than the ones Salish had found. And I was wondering, does that seem to be related to climate change and warming sea temperatures? Or did they have any explanation for why that might be? Did you hear them mention it?
No, unfortunately, I don't think that was something they discovered during that conversation. I don't think they started like studying that. They're very much focused on this study right now, but
One thing that we do know as a result of climate change, unfortunately, is that the sex of the turtles are determined by the temperature of the egg. So as temperature does rise in time, we're getting mostly predominantly female turtles. So one thing that they've added to their research, Duction, which is one of our research and impact partners in different parts of the country, is doing temperature monitoring of the nests to affect that. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times when you ask the scientists, can you give us a definitive answer, they'll be like, we don't have enough research data points on that. Yeah, estimating 10, 20 years, the lifetime of a turtle.
13 years in the life of a sea turtle is nothing, so it's more like 100.
Hi there. Fabulous film, obviously. I'm curious to know, you mentioned that they had children, which I didn't think was mentioned here. I was wondering if any of them were bitten by the conservation bug and involved with any of this. And the second thing I just wanted to ask was how, there's so much poverty in India, and there are some, not me, who feel that conservation in a way is kind of a luxury on a daily basis. How do people navigate that?
So they did have 3 children. One of the younger children, apparently, he basically really he got super enthusiastic, really excited, he was catching snakes in his backyard and stuff. And the mother, I think this is where, it comes in, the realities of what she had to deal with. She didn't want him to get into this field because I think it was painful enough to have to worry about her husband, even though she was so supportive and she was the reason he was able to do this in many ways, but I don't think she could handle her son going through it as well. So she actually kind of gently nudged him into another path. And then the other 2 kids, I think for them, not having their father around and seeing, their mother struggle and their parents struggle financially to look after the family, because obviously this doesn't pay well at all. It's a purely passion-driven work. They kind of, I think, followed more safe commercial sort of opportunities or careers.
I'll answer the second part of that. Conservation is not just a privilege in the sense that people who live closest to the land, if the land is unhealthy, that directly affects their health. So I would argue that actually the most marginalized communities in the world need the healthiest community, ecosystems, because they can't afford drinking filtration systems or any of that stuff. So what the difference though in India is that honestly you really need the buy-in of the community to help protect anything, right? Because the population is so big that they live off the ecosystems in which they are living. And so we have a different kind of concept called a community reserve also in India, which allows the people really to buy in and to help design the management of those spaces. And this is kind of the main type of concept that a lot of our impact partners really push for. And Duction, again, one of our impact partners, they have an entire program called See Change, which essentially is trying to help empower the communities living in those ecosystems with better healthcare, with better vocational training, with better policy design of management of those shared biodiversity spaces.
I'm afraid that is our time. I want to thank our team again for this beautiful film and beautiful